Welcome, everyone. Welcome, Shameless fans, to a very special farewell conversation about Showtime's iconic series and its finale. I'm Stacey Wilson Hunt, and I've been so honored to write and talk about this show now for more than a decade, and I cannot believe we're at this point. I've seen so many of these people grow up. I can't wait to talk about how this show has impacted everyone's lives, and I want to thank all of you for all the work that you've put into making an indelible series about people who are often very forgotten in the cultural landscape. So just know that it has meant a lot to a lot of people. Without further ado, I would love to introduce everyone who's joining us today, starting with executive producer, writer, director, and showrunner, John Wells. Welcome, John. William H. Macy, Jeremy Allen White, Ethan Cutkosky, Shanola Hampton. Looking way too beautiful for a virtual event, not fair. Steve Howey.
Hello.
Emma Kenney, Cameron Monaghan, Christian Isaiah, Noel Fisher, and Kate Miner. Welcome, everyone. It's so nice to see your faces, and I'm sure save yourself, Bill. We haven't even gotten started yet. So, John, I have to start with you because all of this magic trickles down from the top, and I think everyone here can agree you are an incredible boss and role model in the business. So thank you so much. Really, it's a very rare thing what you do, and everyone here can agree that without you, none of us would be here today. So thank you so much. I love talking to creators and showrunners and writers about how to end a show. And you've wrapped a number of iconic series in your career, including ER and The West Wing. And I'd love to know what was inherently challenging, but also what were you excited about the challenge in ending this show? And actually talk a little bit about how you integrated COVID, the pandemic, and this terrible crisis into the series. I have to say it's been the most seamless representation of the pandemic and everything we've been living through that I have seen thus far. So maybe talk a little bit about planning for the end, and then of course having to pivot to these incredibly uncertain times in which we've all been living.
Thanks. Well, first, I've been planning for the end of the series since season 1 because I didn't think we'd last. So I've had a lot of ideas for a long time. But we have a wonderful writing staff. We talked about it for years. And I think it was important to not try and do anything that was self-congratulatory, in which we solved everyone's problems. No lottery ticket that showed up that pulled the Gallaghers out of the world that they live in, because that's not a fair representation of what actually happens to families who are in these circumstances. And we also had a lot of conversations about making certain that Frank didn't get off scot-free for a lifetime of abusing his own body with alcohol and drugs. So that dovetailed well when we started to be involved in these very tragic, difficult times with COVID. We were doing a couple of other shows where we decided we didn't want to deal with COVID and just go on because they were entertainment shows, but we thought it was the perfect opportunity to talk about the outsized influence that the pandemic has had on people who are at the margins financially and in their jobs. So it seemed like it was the natural thing to do, but we also wanted to be honest about it and talk about how, everybody reacted to it differently and kind of dealt with it differently, but that it really had significant impact on the family and people. And then Bill and I had a lot of conversations about, would that be part of what was really the demise of someone who is in Frank's position, at this point in his life, as much abuse as he'd done to his body. Not to suggest that others who have died have only died because of that. So it was and then we had to make it funny. I mean, the show's a comedy, so we're trying to satirize the ways in which everyone's been kind of dealing with these, very difficult, isolating times, and how family is what kind of holds you together in these difficult times. And in many ways, I think the show has been a representation of that when we worked, because we all got together again as a family, as a community, to start making the show again. And, I can't speak for everybody, but for me, it was kind of a lifesaver to get back to work.
That's beautiful. And what's interesting, too, is that people who've struggled and known struggle for a long time, I think have adjusted in some ways better than those who haven't known struggle. Because for the Gallaghers, this is just, okay, bring it on. This is another challenge. So I think it's interesting to explore that. And also for people for whom this is the first time they've been in the margins or the first time they've experienced struggle, whether it be putting fabric on their faces or having to work at home and take care of their child all day. So I think it's been interesting. The Gallaghers have been planning their whole lives for this. This is what they do. And I think that's what's been really special, is to see how easily they've adapted. And those who have seen the finale will see they haven't let it control their lives and they have moved on. So I think that's a beautiful way to tackle this global crisis, and hopefully one that we're just about to, put the final chapter into. So thank you, John.
Yeah,
and
very
Bill,
happy. Clearly we have a situation where the Gallaghers never felt entitled. So this was not a shock to them to discover they were not entitled when a health crisis struck.
Well, and in some ways they're lucky in that sense. They didn't have to get over that hurdle of feeling, well, this is an inconvenience. Their whole lives have been inconvenienced. So I think it's a real testament to people who've struggled. They have a lot to offer us on that front. So thank you for telling that story. And Bill, no offense, it's actually hard to remember your career before Frank Gallagher. Is that how it feels to you too?
Yes, I have no idea what I did before this. If memory serves, I was an actor.
Yes, and you're
thinking of getting back in
it. Well, as you've said goodbye to Frank, and we've all said goodbye to Frank at this point, for now, we never know what he has up his sleeve for the future. What will you miss most about this guy? And are you able to leave him behind? I mean, can you ever get someone like this out of your physiology and your body?
Something happens as a series that goes on this long. The writers started writing to our strengths and our personalities. So the difference between Frank and myself is negligible at this point. And, he drinks more than me, but only a little. And I think the thing I won't lie to you. This final season has been very difficult. My father died of dementia, so I was.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
It was close to me, and a lot of talk with John and the writers about my experience with it, and let's make sure that we deal with it in a truthful and realistic way. But as John said, it had to be funny at the same time, and I think they threaded that needle brilliantly. I will miss. I'll miss Frank. Just as a character who has become so real to me. And more than that, I'll miss playing Frank. It was always so liberating to be so wrong. And, I'll miss my trailer. I really liked my trailer. It was a home away from home. I'll miss all these people in the Hollywood squares here. I will miss getting to act many times a week, which is rare for an actor. I'll miss these writers. I'll miss the fans. It's big. It's a monumental sea change. It really is.
God, you got me tearing up, Bill.
Oh, it's hard. It's hard to say goodbye. And I have to say, one of my most indelible memories of the show is being on set for the scene where Frank crawled out of the porta potty and seeing you in that Smurf blue paint. I have to say, not a lot of actors would have rolled with those punches the way that you have, Bill. So
that was my idea, wasn't it, John? I'm the guy who said, build a tank so that I can go in all together. And it was so interesting. For me, it was just warm water, but I kept looking at the crew and they were about to throw up. And all it was blue water with some Tootsie Rolls floating around in there and some toilet paper. From my point of view, it wasn't that bad, but everybody else was nauseous.
Well, that's just how good you are, is that you were able to make that seem so real. So thank you for that. And Jeremy, I'd love to talk with you. Lip has always been one of my favorite characters because we caught Lip. He was a young guy, but he wasn't as young as his siblings. But at this very crucial time for men, where they make bad decisions that could affect their whole lives, or maybe they don't make those bad decisions. And I think Lip has always walked very admirably this line between stoicism and vulnerability. We've seen him struggle with addiction, responsibilities, pursuing his passions, academia, and all the things that he's tried. And I'm wondering, by the end of the story, in what ways do you feel he most evolved as a person? And what do you most admire about him?
Yeah, I mean, I think, Lip's been fortunate enough to kind of fail so frequently and sort of be given opportunity after opportunity, and to kind of like pull himself up. And I think that, that's what I admire about him, and that's what I admire about, I think, the entirety of the Gallagher clan, and also just the world of Shameless, these characters and their ability to get up after, getting knocked down, and forge ahead. And then also his loyalty, I think, is something I've always admired. And I think, I'm sorry, I'm thinking about, you asked Bill what he'd missed, and I think I've just started thinking about what I'll miss as well. And it's it's a weird thing. We're all really lucky. We've gotten to play these characters for so long, and I don't know about you guys, but I feel that, Lip's never very far away in my head. I'm kind of always thinking of him, and so I think one of the big things that I'll be saying goodbye to, and something I'll miss. I don't know how quickly he'll kind of leave my head, but hopefully, but yeah, I'll miss that kind of, I don't know, kind of buddy. I feel like we're a little joined, and yeah, that'll be a big goodbye,
Oh,
oh my
that's
God,
very
you guys
sweet.
had me like sobbing. I need to calm down.
Save it, Emma. We're not even to you yet, so save it.
Gosh, I can't do this right now.
Thank you, Jeremy. That was lovely. And I think the last few seasons for me, no better word sums up the takeaway better than Gallaghers. And this is a word I hope sticks in the culture, because it means so much. It's funny, but it also means so much to so many people. So Cameron and Noel, I almost have to ask both of you at the same time about this, about Ian and Mickey's relationship, which for me is really one of the most groundbreaking depictions of a gay relationship, or really just love, that I've ever seen on television. And I want to ask both of you, what has it meant to you to see how much this has meant to fans? And also, how has it made you think about love differently and partnership? And maybe I'll start with Noel.
It's very... Obviously, I got into acting because I love telling stories, and stories have meant a lot to me growing up. And to have the opportunity to do a part where I, occasionally will get stopped by somebody on the street who will tell me a very vulnerable and raw story about how this particular storyline and this particular show has had a real impact on their lives it's hard to know what it's so deep and yeah, it's kind of hard to put into words as I'm struggling to do so. It's been a really beautiful thing, and yeah, I'm gonna miss that, and I feel really blessed that I think that's something that is really rare in any artist's kind of career or path, and I think to have been part of something that has touched this many people in this kind of a way is just very special, and yeah, I feel very blessed in it.
Wonderful. And how about you, Cameron? What has this meant to you?
I think there were a few questions in there that were interesting. I mean, first of all, it's incredible. The response has been really unbelievable. That people have gained so much appreciation and love for these characters, all these characters, not just specifically this relationship. But it is interesting, when you're performing a character, I don't think Noel and I think of it as Gallaghers, we think of it as these two people who are strange and interesting and multifaceted. And we both approach these guys individually. And watching these two stories meet each other and intertwine, and how they've developed over the course of 11 years. You know, speaking to what Jeremy said, when I think of Ian, I do think of him as almost someone I know. It's like this good friend that I've known for 11 years. And sometimes good friends do things that are surprising even to you. You can never really predict it. You can never really know. But it's very exciting, and I'm very happy for these characters that they were able to finally find this balance over so long. And I think that's something that people really were gratified by ultimately. And I know I was, as a performer, to be able to take it to the places that we did. But yeah, it means a lot, and I'm very thankful for it.
Well, thank you. And I have to say, Noel, one of my favorite, I'm even just laughing thinking about it, when Mickey's learning how to smile. That's one of the funniest things I've seen a character do in the last year, is just seeing how forced, and Ian's trying to train him. This is how you act around people. I thought that was brilliant. So well done.
Thank you.
And I can see you have a greater facility with smiling than your character. So that's a relief.
I don't struggle with it as much as he does.
Well, thank you both for that. That's very special. And now, Emma, we come to you. So control yourself. Don't get too emotional.
God.
So Debbie's really emerged for me this like a real wild card, almost on Frank's level, where one episode I'm rooting for her, and another I'm like, what are you doing? She really is allowing herself a lot of room to fail and make mistakes and explore. And by the end, we do see her settling into this idea of caretaking and wanting a family, a more stable family partnership, and seeing her look for houses and feeling sad at the idea of silence. I thought was very beautiful. She likes the chaos. She likes having people around. Where do you ultimately think where do you think she finds her strength ultimately to go forward on her own?
I think that kind of since day one, Debbie's been kind of like a hopeless romantic, even in a way of like what she craves in her family. Like she's always kind of just had a hopeless idea of love and I think acceptance in a way. And I think that she kind of gets strength through Franny and through her family. And she takes little pieces of each person in her life. And she kind of, I feel like, adds that to her reservoir and her kind of life resume, if that makes sense. I've always kind of like admired Debbie's strength and related to her in a lot of different ways.
And where do you see her love life going from here? It's anyone's guess, right?
It's anyone's guess. I mean, I think that with Heidi, it's like kind of like, like a Bonnie and Clyde situation in Debbie's head, at least. Like, I think that's where she would want it to go. Like, the idea of jetting off to wherever. But, I guess it's up to the audience's imagination. Could just be Debbie and Franny in the end, which is also kind of beautiful.
It is. And I wanted to ask you about that. How do you think motherhood has changed her, knowing, of course, that she had, by all definitions, a terrible example of motherhood?
A lot of people gave feedback to me when Debbie got pregnant, and they were like, oh, man, like, why did Debbie get pregnant? Why did she do that? Why did they let her have the baby? Blah, blah, blah. But I think that was kind of something that Debbie always wanted. She wanted her little person. She wanted her somebody that she doesn't have to, like, force a connection with. It's just there.
So the one person in her life, she doesn't have to cajole into loving her. She's already part of her DNA.
Exactly. And she doesn't feel like she has to, like, I mean, obviously the Gallaghers are part of her DNA, but it's like everybody's kind of got their own mind, and Franny's so young. And I was honestly very happy kind of when that storyline happened, because I think it's what she's always wanted.
Yeah, for sure. Pursuit of family and support, which hopefully we hope she gets. Thank you, Emma. Yeah. And Steve, I'd love to talk with you about Kevin's journey. And by the end of the show, I feel Kevin seems as content as he's ever been in his life, in his family, with his children, and now this new move, this new life that he and his wife are starting. In what ways have you seen him as a role model for men who kind of want to be independent, but also have a real connection to their families? Because it seems like he's able to balance both in a way that I think is actually really beautiful.
Wow. Kevin's foundation was always his family. It was always V. I don't know who coined the phrase, there's no Kev without the V.
Aww.
So that was the that started it off in the pilot, is that Kev would always go back to V and the family. So I think when he would get into, I mean, there was the rape walker, there was the throuple, but Kev and V always got back together again, and I think that's what Kev's journey would always go back to V. But his independence, him coming from a foster care home and not having a family of his own, I think his journey and his experience was fragile. It was very vulnerable, and if he didn't have Veronica, he wouldn't have anything. So yeah, I mean, I always based it on, like, if they're good, then he's good. If they're happy wife, happy life. It's a true statement. But yeah, I mean, and that was such a beautiful thing, and so fun, is that John and the writers would come up with these hilarious scenarios that we got to play, and then getting to be the clown to Shanola's grace and integrity. We had an Abbott Costello kind of vibe, which was so fun to play off of. And if you know what I mean. So I don't know if I answered your question, but
you did.
I did.
You did.
Answers.
Well, and what I think you're speaking to is throughout all the chaos of this family's life and over the course of this decade, they are the one constant. They are the one thing that has remained. Their love for each other is the one thing that hasn't wavered, which I think is so beautiful, because it's a great role model for anyone trying to make relationship work. But even in the toughest circumstances, these people have found a way to, and they just found each other. They lucked out. And I think that's just it's very hopeful, for sure.
Yeah, I just wanted to credit John and the writing staff for not acknowledging that V was a black woman and Kev was a white man. We never brought it up. It was just two people in love. Mm-hmm. Kind of like the Gallaghers. It was just two people in love. It wasn't beyond that. And I just thought that's such a beautiful thing in our story.
I agree. Very novel in a lot of ways. There aren't a lot of shows that just treat relationships like that as just loving relationships. Mm-hmm. And I think that's really beautiful depiction. And none of this would work without Shanola and her incredible work over the last decade. And I wanted to congratulate you on your first directing experience, episode 8 of the final season. Well done. I imagine you're such a warm, personable person. I have a feeling you were really great at this first outing. So I'm very happy for you. And I did want to ask, what was that like to be on the other side of the camera and to be on the other side of the equation and see all of these incredible actors? They're your peers, but then now you're in this elevated, not that you're bringing ego to it, of course, but you have this opportunity to lead and share creativity in a way that you hadn't before. What was that like for you?
It was amazing. I have to tell you, it's really my new passion. And the fact that John Wells and I had a meeting prior to season 10, and I told him what I felt like I wanted to explore. And he was so open, and it was one of the best meetings of my life, because he not only listened, but he taught even in that initial meeting, and then allowed me to shadow him. And I got to watch him do the finale of season 10, which is following John Wells shooting. The finale is a dream that every student just wants to be a part of. And I got that opportunity, and I just really soaked it all in. And then to have the opportunity to actually direct in the finale, the season series finale of this incredible show, it's just really all been a dream come true. But I have to tell you, it's not possible unless everyone shows up for you in a very real way. And I said this in another interview before. Bill Macy was the first one to knock on my trailer door with flowers and a card saying, "Go get them, and I believe in you." And it starts at the top, but it also is what this show has been and what these people are, who these people are. Everyone showed up for me. Emma and Ethan with my favorite thing, cupcakes, and Cameron with a beautiful bouquet, and Noel making sure that I had the perfect app so I didn't look dumb in front of the DP while I'm looking at the different sizes of the lenses, and Steve, who made like a back that said director Shanola, which I love because I took all my pictures. But it was just everyone showed up for me, not only behind the scenes, but in front of that camera. I am so proud of this episode, not because I did a great job or anything like that, but because of the performances and the heart that each individual gave. It's some good stuff in the episode. Sherman Payne wrote an incredible script, and I'm telling you, we had everything in it, and everybody brought their A game. Not that they don't, but I mean, if there's a plus, they brought that to it. So it was nice. And when you ask what it's like to step behind the camera, you cannot unsee what you have seen. And there's no going back. There's no thing you're like the junk. Actors have this tendency. We all think like when we step on the set, we are that, oh yeah, we're the junk. Everybody's here for us. But they don't realize that people spent time trying to pick a location and making sure the light was going to be specific to where you're going to be in that action. But they want to come on and be like, no, I don't think I want to stand there. And you're like, sure, you don't. I'm only going to lose light. No, there's so many geniuses behind the cameras, especially on this show, because a lot of them have been with us for the entire run. We have Nina, we have Lynn Paulo, we have some incredible, smart individuals that do so many specific little details that we don't pay attention to. So I had such an appreciation. My favorite part, honestly, was the prep because of that, because I got to work with really smart, passionate, kind people. I love being on set too, but the prep was such a moment of clarity for me with how many wonderful people are working to make sure that we've had this great, successful show.
That's so great. And you're right. It's probably very humbling for an actor to realize, oh, I'm not the only person who's put in work. This is hundreds of people who've given tons of planning and forethought to this scene.
That's right.
So if somebody needs to be taken
Shanola,
down a peg, they have to direct, right?
Shanola did the entire episode, 12-hour days, in 6-inch heels.
Of course she did.
I mean, you can direct, but make it fashion, darling.
Right. She's the Ginger Rogers of Shameless now, right? Well, congratulations. And I can't wait to see what you do next on that front. I have a feeling you're going to do a lot of great stuff.
Thank you.
I'd love to talk to Ethan now. Hi, Ethan. How are you doing?
Hello, how are you?
Hi, good. So Carl has, Carl's journey the last 2 seasons, very funny stuff. I always feel like he's been searching for structure and discipline in a way that the other Gallaghers maybe haven't in the same way. Military school and now his work as a police officer. What do you most respect about the way he's been able to grow up, and why do you think he's been looking for such a sort of regimented life after what a lot of people might say, oh, he's been able to do whatever he wanted? Why does he want that structure so desperately?
I think that when Carl was first introduced, through everything, you kind of saw him just being aside from all the chaos and just being a product of most of the chaos of what was happening in the Gallagher household, and seeing all these different outlets and what could happen to him through siblings, through parents. And, you know, it was kind of like how you were saying with Lip's character, teetering along those lines very closely. I think that he necessarily got pretty close to some things and realized that the only way out to really find himself was through structure and through learning respect, and being pushed down to, you know, points that you have to you have to understand humility and understand where you come from and what your family is too. But it's also people that you love at the end of the day. So how do you become the best aspect of yourself while given the hand that you've been given?
And he's obviously had to seek that outside of his home. He's looking to others to provide maybe that structure. But in the end, we see him, as he says, he's the cop that he wants to be. So if he
I'm
gets
very happy. Yeah.
So he gets to ticket a lady with a yoga mat and not ticket a guy who just got furloughed. That's the cop that he's going to be.
Mm-hmm.
And it's interesting too, I think with police being such a complex issue to talk about, we really see both sides of what police officers deal with, especially in Chicago, a big city like that. We see the good ones and we see people trying their hardest. So I think that's, and John too, that's a great, very timely depiction of what law enforcement deals with on a daily basis. And also it just depends on the person. As we see Carl, he's making his own decisions. So
yeah.
Well, thank you for the very, very funny scenes where he's trying to buy pot from the guy, and then it's just so much to digest from this season. It's very, very funny. Congratulations.
Yeah. Thank you. I appreciate it.
And a couple more left. Hopefully everyone's still awake. You're doing well. Okay, Christian, I wanted to say congratulations to you. My goodness, the maturity that you possess, and you're so professional and so kind. Really, you're a great role model for young actors. So I want to congratulate you as well. And it's been so interesting and timely and powerful to watch Liam explore his identity. We see him literally trying on costumes and hairstyles and clothing. But it's a metaphor for, he really is trying to figure out the type of Black young man he wants to be, and that best fits with him. And I think we end up finding that he always knew all along who he was. And I have a feeling we would see him grow up. He's already the Liam that he needs to be. He's a great kid. And I wanted to know, what did you identify with as he's going through these permutations of his identity? Did it feel personal to you?
It sort of felt personal, but as me as Christian, I started to know that I wanted to be on that path of like good structure and make sure that I can be the best at that moment or just in life the whole time of my career. And I think with Liam, he wanted to make sure that he didn't end up like his father, or like when he was like he was like White Boy Carl and Debbie. I think he wanted to make sure who he was. And when he did all the costumes and stuff, he was like, no, I want to be a good leader. He didn't want to be a follower. He wanted to lead other people. He wanted to make sure that he wasn't going to end up like some of his family members. He wanted to make sure that he was a Gallagher, but like a good Gallagher.
Well, he kind of ends up being sort of the role model of the group, I have to say. And I do also love the scenes with V when you're at the house and she's sort of telling you, you have a bigger pressure on you than the rest of your siblings. You walk out of the house, they see you as a young Black man. They don't know that you're making good decisions. They see only what they see. And so I think, Shanola, that was very powerful too, and very timely for us to see that interaction, because it's something that has to be said now to young men. And I hope kids watching that resonated with them. That was really beautiful.
Yeah,
and then
it was like at the moment, it wasn't sort of, oh, sorry.
Oh, no, please go ahead. This is you.
But like at the moment of everything that went on, Liam was sort of like, wait a minute, this is what's happening in the world, but the house that I'm living in isn't showing me this. So he had to go to V just to know where he came from. And I felt like that was a very good episode, or a couple of scenes that really showed Liam what life really was, instead of just the Gallagher house that he'd always known. It was like, okay, this is a real world, and this is what you go into every night. Like, you have to remember that you need to be correct in everything you say and not mess up in life. That felt like those scenes really taught Liam his structure and how to become a good Black young child in a world where racism is still around.
Right. And in a lot of ways, he's been protected from that by having a family that has been so accepting of him. So it's interesting to think he's been spoiled in a sense, because in the world, he won't have that same level of support. So I think that's been a really powerful message for people to see. Well, thank you. And congratulations, Christian.
Thank you.
And finally, Kate, last but not least, you're an honorary, now almost official Gallagher. Congratulations. I would love to know who, it's no small thing to survive this, by the way. Who or what would you say has made it the most easy for you to feel part of this family? Because a lot of people have come and gone in these people's lives, but you are sort of the constant. Who or what has made it easier for you as an actor to feel like this is your family?
Well, I think coming onto the show, I didn't really know what to expect, but everyone was so welcoming from day one. that it was really easy to kind of just slide into the day-to-day of being on set with everyone. And I think that helped the character too, because, you know, I was just thrown into the fire. It was like, here's how we do things, let's go. And they'd all been doing this, you know, a well-run machine for 9 years. And I just came in and they just welcomed me and helped me just kind of roll with it. And so I think I felt like part of the family right away, and that never stopped. These are people you think should have big egos or not be so nice because of the caliber of their work. They deserve to, you know, you would expect that. Maybe it's just what you would think of Hollywood, and everyone, it was just like giving me hugs back when you could hug, and you know, just so welcoming. And I don't know that I'll ever find that again. So that, I think that'll maybe, I hope I do, but I know it's something special. I knew it was special about 2 episodes in. I was like, oh my God, I think I got the jackpot here. These are good. These are people I want to work with. So,
it's great. So life
it was family right away.
The actual, so your character is being accepted was also mirrored on set in your day-to-day, which is really beautiful.
Yeah. And I think it was helpful when Lip and Tammy had a baby. It was like, all right, we're family, because, you know, a baby's forever.
You're forever bound.
So
that's right.
When that happened, I think that really was cementing for their relationship, and just really helped me find with Tammy. It was like, okay, whatever, you have to deal with the Gallaghers now, because they're never going to be out of your life. You have, your child is half Gallagher. So this is life now.
I love that. Well, and it was also beautiful. And on that same note, speaking to Steve and Shanola about seeing these characters make it, despite, you know, one of you could have left, and obviously Tammy flirted with the idea of leaving, but to see them committing to each other amidst these hard economic times and job loss, I think, again, it's very inspiring to see people who don't have a lot can choose to make it work if they love each other. So I think that's a really nice depiction too. So none of us would be here probably without the acting generosity of Bill Macy, who each of you has told me in some form or another over the last decade that working with him and learning from him has been key to you being able to do your work. And I would love to know, what have you learned about your craft from Bill? And what will you take with you moving forward? Maybe I'll start with Emma.
One specific thing that just pops off my top of my head is Bill would always tell me to slow down while I would speak, and, you know, enunciate. He was like, Emma, I can't understand what you're saying. And I mean, I hope my enunciation and clarity is better now, because it's something I've been working on for years. But that's just one of the so many things Bill has taught in life and on the show, on screen and off. Just a great guy.
How about you, Cameron? What's your takeaway from the Bill Macy School of Acting?
I think that there's a lot to be said about Bill's generosity on set as a performer. You know, not only with the regular cast, but watching the way that Bill is always very warm to the guest cast, and you know, people are coming in for just a couple lines, and you know, I think that just comes from Bill being a veteran for you know, many years in acting, and he understands the dynamics of a set, and he understands leadership in the role of it, and he's never flashy with it. And you know, I think that he's set the tone, and without him setting the tone, the set wouldn't be the way that it is. It's not a mistake that the set is as warm and professional and encompassing as what it's turned out to be.
I think the only thing flashy about Bill is his big ass trailer.
I'll miss your trailer too, Bill.
Yeah, I miss your trailer, Bill. That trailer was amazing.
And Bill, what did you have in this trailer? Did you pimp it out on the inside? What are we talking about here?
I had a steam room. There was a lap pool. I had a full bar.
But in all seriousness, Bill, how does it feel to know that you have impacted your co-stars so intensely, and that they will carry all of this with them the rest of their careers? Does that overwhelm you at all to hear that?
It's yeah, I think a responsibility comes from being number one on the call sheet, and I've been on sets where the number one didn't shoulder that responsibility, and there is a lacking. I think it was in the military that they realized that shit rolls downhill, and John Wells is a great leader, and so the tone was set before I ever stepped on the set, and I've been in a toxic set, and you can't do your work, and it's so easy just to be respectful of each other. There are just a few rules, and if you don't violate those rules, everything will work out well. There's a tendency when you see someone do bad work, you think you're doing it on purpose, and I'm angry with you, but they're not doing it on purpose.
Right. So it has to be a perfect alchemy. Ooh.
Whose window's open?
Sorry, there's a siren driving by where I'm at.
That's very shameless. That very shameless.
It's that kind of shit that just drives you just.
At least it's not my dogs. I'm not at my house.
That's right. And thank you, Bill. And I think everyone would agree. And I've been on sets too, just observing. And there's an energy that you feel when this exists, and there's an energy you feel when it doesn't. So I think it's palpable, and it does come through the work. So thank you for being that person for all these incredible artists. And John, you and I have spoken over the years about the groundbreakingness of this series and its depiction of poverty, the multi-dimensions of that, but even just the fact that it depicts poverty at all. Here we are in the quote-unquote golden age of TV, and there still aren't very many shows telling these stories. And for me, it's probably the most egregious part of the inclusiveness conversation, that this should be also part of inclusiveness. So thank you again for telling these stories. And a word that I come back to very often with the show is empathy, and how it teaches empathy. And I'd love to know what everyone here has learned about empathizing, but also, John, has that been a recurring theme for you when you write the show?
Yeah, there were two things we wanted to set out, and we talked about a lot at the beginning, which just because you're poor doesn't mean you're dirty, doesn't mean you don't care about other people, doesn't mean you don't love each other. And so the central theme of the show, always from Paul Abbott, this was really his family, was for everything that went on in my family and everything that went on in his family and the other writers' families, we always loved each other, and we were always there for each other. And I think when people return to the show, they return to the show for that sense of these are characters who genuinely care about each other, love each other. You got someplace to go. And that's really what empathy is. Empathy is listening to what someone else is saying, and understanding that they just need your understanding, and just that a basic appreciation of loving everybody around you, even when you're frustrated, even when you hate them, is what holds us together as communities. And this notion that because you don't have enough financial resources, you are somehow poor in character, or poor in your ability to empathize with others, poor in other ways. It's just money. It has nothing to do with how you are, who you are, and how you are. So that was really what it was always based on, what we talked about a lot in the writers' room.
Well, that absolutely comes through, and even at the end, where
somebody just came through and arrested Emma, I think. I'm pretty sure.
Very fitting.
Well, I think the fact that we are still able to empathize with Frank in the final chapter of his life, knowing everything he's done, is, and I just got chills thinking about it. It really speaks to, no matter who you are and what you've done in your life, there's still that shred of dignity that we each deserve, and maybe as our lives are ending, as he's suffering this illness. And we don't know a ton about how he grew up, but I have a feeling there's generational poverty and abuse and addiction in his family too. So I think that's something that I've really taken from the show, is this is generational, And sometimes it's broken and sometimes it's not. And I think that right now in America, this is very important. So thank you, John, for telling these stories. And for other people, what have you learned about empathy, or how has this show changed the way that you think about the world? And especially during such a divisive time, I have relatives I can't speak to because of their political opinions, but I have to constantly dig in and think about, okay, what are our connections? What's the shared love? And I'm wondering, have you had these experiences too? Maybe Jeremy, tell me about your experiences.
Yeah, I mean, I think something I've really loved about the show is the way it's kind of dealt with forgiveness in these characters. There doesn't seem to be a point of too far. Like the things that these characters have done to one another, the anger, the shame, all of these feelings, they've been in each other's throats, but they've always been able to get back. They've always been able to hold on to the love somewhere. So yeah, I think there's certainly a lesson in forgiveness, a through line in the whole thing. I think I've spoken about this scene before. It might have even been with you at a different panel. But it was a scene that always stuck out to me. It was in the first season, and Frank had slept with Lip's girlfriend at the time, Karen Jackson, and he kind of, he comes to his window and he has this sort of this big apology, and in order to receive Lip's forgiveness, Lip unzips and he pees on Frank's head, and that sort of like, I think it made me understand the show. Frank had gone so far, but they found a way to kind of shake hands and forgive, and that was a really powerful moment.
Shake hands, so to speak. Yes.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And speaking of favorite moments, over the course of 11 seasons, it's so hard to choose moments. But is there something that sticks out for you, either as a performer, where you look back on something that you shot and you're so proud of it, or even just as a fan when you've gone back and watched the episodes and you realize, like, oh my God, I had no idea that's how that was going to turn out? Is something stick with you that, I know it's so hard to choose over these 100+ episodes, but
I mean, it might be a little weird, but I think especially in the earlier seasons, I've kind of been going back and watching some early stuff more recently. I think just because we're coming to an end now, and I'm so impressed with all of us with these just these like long kitchen scenes, these like that tend to open most of our episodes. There's such a comfort and ease. It just all rings so true, the way that everybody moves around that room. They get their coffee, they get their cereal, even in quiet moments for like all of these guys in those scenes. I'm just really impressed with how like present and true everybody is in scenes like that,
Those are hard scenes to choreograph too, and I agree with you. They always feel real. There's 100 things going on at once, but it feels like you're really in someone's home.
I've been really proud about how this show, John and the writers have been willing to say anything in this day and age when it seems like we're rushing to give up our First Amendment rights in the cancel culture. That on Shameless, I think we've decided we can say anything, anytime, and no one can tell us any different. And it's done with humor. And when people talk jive, usually they pay the price for it, some other character. But I'm really proud of, one, that the show has been willing to say the unspeakable, and two, I love the way we've done sex. It's so sort of matter of fact, and everybody does it, and calm down. It's like they say at the Hustler store, relax, it's just sex. I'm particularly proud of the writers, and for John and for us, we'll say anything.
Right. Well, and this gets to obviously the central theme of the series, which is shame, and how shame is learned, at least from my perspective. It's learned either through religion or school or family. So these people are actually so spoiled in the sense that they've never learned to feel shame. So I think that's aspirational television in a lot of ways. And John and I have talked about, it's a hard show to sell because it's not aspirational TV. I think it's actually really aspirational in that sense, is that there's no judgment. And I wanted to ask Noel and Cameron, in bringing that sensibility to your on-screen relationship, and also the way sex is depicted, it's kind of aggressive, it's kind of mean sometimes. And this is real. This is how people act. How have you taken that guidance and applied it to those scenes?
I think I will push back on you a little bit on that one, and kind of just disagree a little bit. I think that these characters definitely understand shame. They understand these things, but also they've grown up in circumstances where that they're not given that kind of room. They're in this boat that's so small, and they're dealing with a difficulty is that it doesn't allow themselves. You have to at a certain point just kind of accept, like, we're in this, so what are we going to do? Sit around all day and be ashamed of ourselves? No, we sometimes we got to cheat or steal to survive. That's what we got to do. That's what we got to do. Some people don't like us for being the way we are. Oh, well, and I think that it's great that all the identity politics of these characters, being whatever they are, wealth, sexuality, race, it is a part of who they are, and it informs them and their decisions. It's the cultural context of these characters is extremely important to who they are, but they're also given room to explore other things beyond it, and also to make mistakes. And it doesn't, everyone is human. Everyone makes mistakes. We're not always going to agree with the decisions of these characters, but we do understand them. And the way that the show is ultimately about these base things of where do you sleep? Where do you eat? Where do you go to the bathroom? Who do you have sex with? The base human things. The show starts in a bathroom. I think that there's something amazing about that we give all of these characters room beyond these simple labels. These characters could be simplified, but they're not, and I think that that's amazing. I think that's a broader answer to the question, but it was yeah. How about you, Noel?
Yeah, no, I love that. And thank you, Cameron.
Thank you.
How about you, Noel? Yeah.
Cameron stated that quite beautifully. I think something that's really centrally wonderful about the show is just that the consistent most important thing about any of these characters, despite whatever other part of identity they might be looking at or be experiencing, there's a focus on the humanity of it and the things that everyone can relate to, because it's just that base human experience. And in a larger sense, even the theme of the show overall is just that kind of, per John's point and per a lot of other people's points here, is that kind of love conquers all. And it's just that thing that's so relatable about no matter where you come from or who you are, or how you see the world or experience your life, you understand that on a very kind of fundamental level. And I think that the writers have done a really beautiful job of staying focused on that and really bringing that sort of idea to the scenes and to the episodes and giving us the opportunity to kind of show that as best we can.
I agree. And I would love to know, and anyone can speak to this, who is the most different from what your initial impressions of him or her? Who is someone you met at the beginning and you realize, oh, that's not the way she is at all, or that's not the way he is at all? Okay, Christian, you have one.
When I first got on set, I think it was like my first ever breakfast scene. That was my first scene when I got on set, and I saw I saw Frank in like this dirty tee, him with his beard and everything. It freaked me out. And then I was like, he just came to set like this. Like, I was like, okay, be presentable, say hi to everyone. And then he was just sitting there, and I was like, and then when I really got to know him, and I was like, Frank and Bill are two opposite people. They are so different from each other. And I was just like, wow.
That's the sweetest thing you've ever said. Thank you, Christian.
How about anyone else? Did your impressions of someone change over the course of making the show? I know it's hard to people are feeling each other out at first. A lot of you met early on, and then some of you didn't meet until set. How did that evolve?
We
for
didn't
you?
really feel each other out.
I feel like we clicked pretty quick and we're understanding of each other pretty quick.
That was incredible. It was we didn't have that whole instantly what John Wells did and Mark Mylod did. They put together great people. They knew what they were doing, a synergy. So right away, like when I tell you right away that first week, we were like this. Playing Guitar Hero and miniature golf and clowning around and you're going to be my brother for life and I'm going to take care of you and baby. Like it was not, we never had this moment of, let me see what you're like or, oh, you're so different. We're all just like, we just vibed and it's lasts a decade.
I remember at my screen test, I saw Shanola, Ethan was there, Jeremy was there, and Shanola, do you remember you ran lines with me right before? Or I think it was the mix-in match. It was at the office in Warner Brothers. John, you were there. Bill, you were there. I read with you. Whole game.
Yeah.
I think we should also give John Levy, our casting director, a shout out because it was John Wells and John Levy's discretion who created this dynamic.
Incredible. Agreed.
Huge.
And of course, in these current times, since apparently TV shows never actually really die since they're rebooted every other day, when this show is inevitably rebooted in 15 years, where do you think we'll be finding your characters? Maybe I start with Emma.
Oh, man. Well, I feel like in 15 years, Debbie will probably have maybe another kid. Hopefully she kind of got it all figured out. I think like a theme of what the Gallaghers and kind of all of the characters are looking for is a form of structure, as we've mentioned today. So I hope that Debbie gets the structure she's always wanted.
That sounds good. And Shanola and Steve, will we find your couple and your family in Kentucky?
I don't know. Maybe I don't know. In 15 years, I don't know they'll last 15 years in Kentucky. I think it'll be too slow. They'll find some time. They'll hustle the folks and dip up out of there is probably what I think will happen. But the one thing I know for sure is they'll be together. There's no way that they won't be together. They will be together wherever they are.
That's sweet. And Ethan, how about Carl?
I like the idea of Carl possibly taking over the Alibi, making a cop bar, but only good cops allowed.
And how can you screen for good cops at the door? How can you screen for them?
I think that would kind of be the Gallagher way of sussing everybody out and then taking them to the alley if they're the bad cops.
I like that. And Kate and Jeremy, will we find your characters still together and trying to make it work?
I hope so. I mean, it sounds like we're probably expecting another little one. Yeah.
So, they're not very good at being not pregnant. So I think we'll just
maybe in 15 years, who knows how many there will be.
Pregnant again, like you know. So if that keeps happening, I don't know.
We'll have a whole new Gallagher clan.
Yeah,
that's right.
The next 6 kids will be
next generation.
And Noel and Cameron, where do we think we'll find your betrothed?
Prison. Probably prison.
Likely.
No, I think together, most likely. I think they've stuck it out through a lot at this point. It would be pretty amazing for something to pull them apart by now.
I don't even know what that would be.
Right.
They do have an amazing connection. I love that.
I guess we'll have to have a.
Oh, sorry.
No, we'll have to have a reunion season in 5 to 10 years, huh? Then we'll be able to figure it out.
Well, the fans are already waiting, so you'll already have that audience. And Christian, where will we find Liam? He'll be a promising, maybe a business owner. What will he be doing then?
Yeah, I think I'll be a business owner probably in 15 years. But other than that, I can't really picture what Liam would do. But I think Liam would want to stay on the good path.
Oh, well, that's why he's the heart of the series for that reason, and we all have high hopes for him. And John,
I think Frank will still be dead, but I think Frank will still be dead.
You
but
never
he'll
know.
have a plan.
He'll still be dead in what, Bill?
But he'll have a plan.
And on that note, I did want to allow John to sort of close this out and just try to summarize how you feel about the show ending and what has this show given you as an artist and as a writer.
Well, for one, it's given me the opportunity to work with all these wonderful people who are here and watch several of them grow up. From how old were you, Emma? How old were you, Ethan, when we started?
We were 9.
Oh my goodness.
Jeremy, how old were you?
I was just 18.
Cameron?
It's about to turn 16.
Wow.
I think you told us you were about to turn 17. I think I recall.
What was the breakdown of the character? I probably said that.
That would have been how old you were. Yeah.
But what a thing to watch that, John. It must feel you must feel so paternal but so proud.
Very proud. It's a great group of people and to watch them grow up. Some of us were already adults. Some of us were adults, sort of like me. But it was great. And we've just had a wonderful group of people to work with, not only the cast, but all of our creative staff, and our fans. The Gallaghers, the whole Gallaghers thing came from the fans. We didn't make up Gallaghers. It actually came from the fans and their desire to see this relationship keep going. And in particular, a lot of the Gallaghers, the world of the Gallaghers and the importance of it really is all due to Nancy Pimentel, one of the senior writer on the show, who was a tremendous advocate for that story all those years. And all these wonderful writers and directors, people we've had the chance to work with behind the camera. And, it's just been a great experience that we don't get often. We would have done it for another 20 years if I could have talked to anybody on this call to keep doing it with us. Just because we got to talk about things we don't get to talk about in other places, and saved me a tremendous amount of money at therapists because I got to work through an awful lot of personal family issues through writing. But it's been a real pleasure.
Oh, well, I'm.
The show saved me a lot of therapy too, John.
Well, and it's always there if you need that little boost. It's always there, ready to be streamed. And again, on behalf of fans and journalists and people all over the world who have found comfort in the show and relatability and thought, oh, I'm not alone. These people are nuts too. It's a really wonderful thing to feel watching the series. So congratulations to each of you. I wish all of you the best. And I do want to tell the fans to please don't miss your chance to visit the 3D Gallagher House, GallagherHouse.com, which is live now and features exclusive content and fun surprises for diehard fans. So I can't imagine what's awaiting that, but that sounds very exciting. And just thank you to everyone for joining us today. Congratulations on this incredible finale, incredible run. And please stay safe and take care of yourselves. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Give yourself a round of applause.
Thanks, Stacey.
I love you all.
Love
Yeah,
you.
love you
Love
guys.
Love you guys too.
Hey, Steve, how would you pronounce Kevin without the V? What would that actually be?
Ken?
Keen. Hey, one last thing, everybody, if I can. What Bill said, all of you are going to be number one on a call sheet someday. Do it just like Bill did. You set the tone on the set.
Yeah.
Yep.
So
He's
sweet.
the man.
Yeah.
Damn right, Bill. You're the best.